Night school.
Night school.
The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success by Deepak Chopra. I read this book in one sitting last night, and it was easy to do because it is 115 pages. The pages are small. Text isn't that small. And he is really, really good at word economics, like saying a lot with very, very few words. And
Cool.
just like in the Stoic book that we covered, where I expressed that it was really
Do you, are you referring to the anxiety one?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, right at the beginning of that episode, I said this book was like 90 pages and it was not any longer than it needed to be. And that's really in the spirit of Stoicism, to not say more than you need to say.
Totally.
You know, to be minimalistic with your language. And similarly, this book is about how to be successful without unnecessary effort, how to be successful by being in harmony with the way that things work in the universe. And a lot of that is doing things as naturally and effortlessly as possible.
Like the Wu Wei.
Yes.
Have we talked about that?
Yes. Wu Wei. What does that translate to?
It's like force without effort. It's something like that, or like effort without effort. It's something like getting stuff done, but getting stuff done in such a way that you are going with the flow and that it's not tiring, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
And in theory, if you are accomplishing, so like, let me give an example real quick. I did a guided meditation with you the other day. It was a attempt at hypnosis, but it turned into just a guided meditation. But in that guided meditation, I referenced the concept of breathing without any effort. So if you try to breathe hard, it takes effort to breathe. If you hold your breath, it takes effort not to breathe. But there is a fine line where you breathe without any effort at all, because you're already designed and wired to breathe. Mm-hmm. So it takes effort to breathe a little more than you're wired to, and it takes effort to breathe a little less than you're wired to, and it takes no effort to breathe perfectly naturally. Well, in the same sense, if you do exactly what you're supposed to do with your life, and you do it in exactly the right way, it will take no effort.
Gotcha.
And that's what this book is about.
I like that idea, and I was just talking to Sarah the other day about, like, we were talking about work and about like how you can come home from a day of taking phone calls and be like tired from it, and it's like you're not actually physically getting tired by the effort of the thing that you're doing. You're getting physically tired by the effort that's going on in your head, like the stress of the situation,
right,
and the way that you're thinking about it, I guess.
Yes. So in the fourth law, the law of least effort, we'll talk about the most common psychological habits that waste energy.
Love it. That sounds fun.
But just to say something about Deepak, that, man, the guy's really cool. He's a medical doctor. He's a world-class meditation teacher. He's taught meditation to Oprah and Michael Jackson, huge people. But he says that famous people like that make up maybe 1 in 1,000 people that he works with. He mostly just works with regular people. Mm-hmm. He's not one of the guys that like gravitates around celebrities, which I think like Maharishi did a little bit. Chopra did work with Maharishi at a point. He studied under him a little bit. He ran one of his health organizations for a little while, but he branched off from him.
Okay.
And I can really see some of... I don't know if I'm seeing Maharishi's influence in Deepak's writing, or if it's just that they're both teaching the way to do life according to the Vedas, so they're using similar language, but they sound similar in some rights. But Deepak, his workday is very, very comical. It's like he.
Oh yeah, I think you've told me about this. Yeah.
Dude, I mean, he wakes up, he does yoga for like 2 hours, and then he meditates for like a half hour, and then he eats a salad, and then he works for a couple of hours, and then he meditates again, and then he works.
And what's work?
Like writing a book or having a meeting with a board that he's on.
Okay.
Or doing a talk virtually, something like that. He works about 5 hours a day, and the rest of the day is either silence, meditation, or yoga. And he's actually the first spiritual teacher that I've heard recommend both silence and meditation. I've never heard that By silence, he means just sitting in a room doing nothing. And by meditation, he means diving within intentionally to experience pure consciousness. But he practices both. And he practices yoga. He works 5 hours a day. He's worth 80 million. And
a little bit sounds like he needs friends.
well, I mean, I don't know. I imagine that he has friends.
Probably.
His workday does sound a bit isolated, but I assume that he has friends. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Probably.
He seems like the type to have friends. He doesn't seem like someone that over spiritualizes or obsesses over himself, because he's very open and very comfortable. He's been married to one woman for 48 years, and in an interview I read yesterday, he was asked, "What would your last meal be?" And he said, "I'm planning on fasting for a few days before I die." And then they asked, "What did you last listen to?" And he said, "Silence." The guy doesn't do anything. I mean, he doesn't do anything. And he has published 85 books, and he's worth $80 million. So he walks the walk, man.
Right.
He doesn't overexert himself. So to get into the book, at the beginning of the book, he says that the 7 spiritual laws of success could also just be called the 7 laws of life. He wrote it to appeal to a Western audience, and he kind of does the opposite of what the televangelists do with prosperity preaching, because people go to pastors to learn about God, and some of them say, "You want to learn about God? I'll tell you how to get rich." But Deepak, he goes, "You want to know how to get rich? Align yourself with God." So it's kind of the opposite.
Okay.
It's like, so he writes the word success on the book, and so dumb Westerners like me pick it up, and we go, "I want to know how to be successful from a guru. Teach me the magic so I can get lots of money." And then he goes, "Well, you got to just do things easy, be aligned with God, tell the truth, take it easy, be generous, do what you're best at, and relax, and don't work hard." And it's like, oh, that's not what I was expecting here, but you just brought me closer to God by selling me success. So what he's saying is that these 7 laws, they govern the way that being itself creates. They govern the nature of creativity as such. And so if we understand the way that the universe creates, then we understand how ourselves to create in harmony with the way that creation is.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. I'm excited.
The 7 laws of how the creator creates is one way that you could phrase it. He first addresses the misconception that hard work equals success, which is a really, really common. I'm going to reference Chris Langan a couple times today. He has the highest IQ in America, and he has a theory of everything called the CTMU, Cognitive
Theoretical Model of the Universe.
Cognitive Theoretical Model of the Universe. It basically describes in scientific terms how the mind of God operates. There's some similar ideas, but Chris Langan has always been a blue-collar worker and is obsessed with insulting people who don't work as hard as he does. And so later I'm going to explain something where CTMU aligns with Chopra's description of how God works, but they're polarized in that sense. Chris Langan's like, without hard work, nothing happens. And Deepak's like, no, things are hard because you're doing them wrong. So he first just slashes that and says, no, hard work does not equal success. Screw that. You got to just do it smart. Play smart, not hard. So the first law is the law of pure potentiality. So what he means by this is that pure consciousness, which everything is made of, is also the field of pure potentiality. So we've talked several times on this podcast about the idea that what Evan is made of, what you're made of, what I'm made of, and what this whole environment is made of is a single unified field, which physicists are working to objectively describe as we speak, but which a lot of mystics have talked about for a long time. Mm-hmm. And that unified field could also be called the creator or the mind of God. And one of the names that Chopra assigns it in this book is the field of pure potentiality. So he gives a few lines from ancient Indian scriptures that are Genesis chapter 1, verse 1 type lines that say, in the beginning, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. And they say something like, in the beginning, all there was pure potentiality, which then became manifest. And so what he's pointing out with this first law, the law of pure potentiality, is that what you're fundamentally made of is that which is of such pure potentiality that it existed before anything had even manifested. You're made of the very essence that transformed the unmanifest into the manifest. And because of that, because of that, you have the ability to create whatever you want to create. And the extent to which you are grounded in that aspect of yourself is the extent to which you can create what you want to create.
So, like the more plugged in to the potentiality or God you are, the more potential for creation you have.
Yeah, so the more, I would word it slightly different. The more plugged in you are to God, and the more aware you are that God is also the field of pure potentiality, the more easily you can create what you want to create in your life.
Okay. And by create what you want to create in your life, that's just make something happen. Or, like, is that literally saying that you're more capable of building things if you're more tapped into God?
Absolutely. But what I mean is manifesting the kind of life that you want or building what you want to build.
Okay.
So, and actually something else to note is that he describes success as material abundance, health, positive relationships, creative freedom, peace of mind, and abundant energy. So,
All good. Yeah.
So when he says the 7 spiritual laws of success, he's referring to well-rounded success.
Okay. Cool.
So he's saying that you can create the life that you can create exactly the life you want to create if you understand and remain grounded in the fact that you are made of the field of pure potentiality. And we tend to think that we are only as capable, that our ability to create is limited by the finite body and brain that we occupy. We tend to think that. He's saying no, that individual ego is what you are at a certain level of analysis. But if you also understand that at the truest and deepest level of analysis, you are pure potentiality itself, you can greatly expand your impression of what you're able to create and genuinely expand what you are able to create.
Okay.
So that's law number 1, the law of pure potentiality.
Okay.
Something else he references in this chapter is the fact that if you manifest your desires, if you state your goals from a still mind, they are more likely to manifest than if you state your desires from a gross level of mind. State your goals from a subtle level of mind rather than stating your goals from a gross level of mind. And this is actually something that Maharishi teaches as well. So once Maharishi teaches a meditation technique called Transcendental Meditation, then there's an advanced course called the TM Siddhi program. Siddhi is SIDHI.
Mm-hmm.
They're basically psychic superpowers.
Right.
And one of the siddhis is that from the deep transcendental consciousness experience that you have at the peak of meditation, from that experience, if you manifest what you want, it will happen much more quickly and much more effortlessly than if you just randomly in the waking state throughout your day state something that you want, because the aspect of you that is stating what it wants is closer to the field of pure potentiality than you are in the waking state.
Yeah, it's like it's like praying, but it's like doing your broadcast from a better position where it's going to be able to go much further or be much closer to the thing you're trying to get it to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or it's like choking up on something to get more leverage.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's also that also reminds me of what hypnosis is in part, which is getting somebody to a deeper level of mind and then stating into their subconscious mind the changes that are going to occur in their life, and they're more likely to happen. And if I look at you and I say, you're going to be successful, and I really, really mean it, it'll help. But if I get you to a level of mind that is closer to the level of pure potentiality than the gross level of mind, and I say it to that part of you, it plants the seed in a more secure place.
Right.
But it still takes time for that seed to sprout.
Yeah, that's basically prayer too. Like, because I mean, anyway, anything that you kind of hope in your head is going to happen or fear is going to happen is a prayer of sorts. It's like a thought that you're putting out there.
Yeah.
And you're putting yourself into a state of hypnosis so that you'll be more likely to quit cigarettes because you can say it more deeply to yourself or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And when you say gross, you said gross state of mind.
Mm-hmm.
Is that just like the basic way that the mind generally works, or
No, the basic way that the mind generally works is godlike. That's the basic way that the mind works. So the basic way that the mind works, the fundamental level of mind, the base level of mind, is the subtle level that God operates on. The gross level is
I mean like basic way that like people exist in the modern world.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's gross kind of means clunky. So if you watch someone walk, if you watch yourself walk after you meditate, you're like, wow, this is graceful and smooth. And when you walk while you're stressed out, it's gross, it's clunkier. So
Okay.
gross just means the opposite of subtle,
Okay.
the way that I'm using it.
Okay.
I'm actually glad that you asked because at MIU they use that word a lot, so it's just entered my vocabulary, and I haven't really assessed what I mean by it. Something else that he references, I can't remember quite why this fits under a field of pure potentiality, but he brought it up in this chapter. He said, the reason, and this relates to psychological habits that waste energy, the reason that you want to stop judging is that creativity springs forth from your mind in the gaps between thoughts. And when you're a judgmental person, when you have a judgmental habit, you walk around, and that doesn't mean that you criticize people. It means that just everything that you see, oh, is this an ugly table? Oh, is that person driving bad? Oh, is that tree cool? Just random little things. He says that
So it could
where
be positive, judgmentally positive as well.
yes, yeah,
Okay.
either way.
Okay.
Yeah, this is good, this is bad, this is right, this is wrong.
Okay.
That habit means that you don't experience gaps between your thoughts because judgments fill those gaps. And so creative ideas spontaneously emerge in a still mind, and minds are still momentarily between thoughts. So you should have thoughts, and then the thoughts should end, and you shouldn't have any thoughts. You should just be walking around empty-headed, just experiencing exactly what you're seeing. I mean empty-headed in a way that's synonymous with whole-headed, like your head is just full of what you're experiencing, and then another thought pops up. Because in those gaps between thoughts, creative ideas just emerge. They just pop into your head. And there has to be silence between your thoughts for them to have the room to walk in. Otherwise, those creative ideas could be knocking on the door, but your brain could be busy all the time with making random judgments. And I think it went in chapter 1 because he's saying that the aspect of you that is the field of pure potentiality has access to you when your mind is still. And if you're judging all the time, then your mind is never still because judgment fills the gaps between thoughts.
No, that's not. I imagine that's not just judgment, right? What if you're worrying?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
He actually, I think he addresses that one later too.
Okay.
But yeah, we'll talk about that in 4. I wrote down a page to read a quote. You need not leave your room. Oh, sorry. This is an Austrian philosopher and poet named Franz Kafka. You need not leave your room. Remain sitting at your table and listen. You need not even listen. Simply wait. You need not even wait. Just learn to become quiet and still and solitary. The world will freely offer itself to you to be unmasked. It has no choice. It will roll in ecstasy at your feet. So just by the mere act of being silent, the field of pure potentiality will manifest in your mind. That's their point.
Interesting.
So number 2 is the law of giving. So Deepak describes currency as a set of symbols that represent life force and compares life force to blood in the sense that it needs to flow continuously for it to nourish you. So his point is that if you are doing your best to receive currency, but you're not sharing currency out, you're not being generous with your currency, then you have he seems to imply that you have literally some sort of metaphysical blockage that will stop currency from moving through your life. Like if you're greedy, then the currency will get stuck in you. And he points out that the root word from affluence is affluere, and the root word from currency is curere, as in currere. I don't know if it's a coincidence that it sounds like the word career. It's kind of interesting, but curere. And affluere, I think they're Latin or Greek roots. I can't remember, but affluere means flow, and courier means to run, like basically to flow. So the word affluent means that there is an abundant flow of material value through you, and the word currency refers to the fact that life force flows through our economy in the form of money.
Yeah, I never thought about that.
And so if you're not letting wealth flow through you to other people, then it'll just stop in you. But the thing is that a lot of the wealthiest people on the planet have designed the little microeconomy that they are so that it traps wealth, but it doesn't let it out. And so their bank account gets bigger and bigger and bigger. But in this model of thinking about success, it's not that they have success. It's that they have ridiculous, diseased, bloated microeconomies. That's what they are.
Right, they got stagnant money.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's not serving being. It's not serving the community, and they have unbalanced success. So people who operate that way are not going to have the other markers of success that he identified, such as healthy relationships, creative freedom, peace of mind, and energy. Maybe energy, but you're not going to have peace of mind. Your relationships aren't going to be what you want them to be, because if your habit is to take, keep, then you're blocked, you're clotted, or you are a clot. So, but he also explains that since currency is one symbol of life force, you can give in other ways besides just financial. So if every time you interact with somebody, you secretly, internally wish the absolute best for them, then you'll engage with them in a way that is life-supporting, and that is allowing life force to flow through you. Even if you don't give them money, life force is still flowing in you through currency, and life force can flow out of you through other methods too, not just currency. But it is a good idea to be financially generous as well. Although in some cases, psychic generosity can be just the purest, best form of generosity, praying for people, wishing the best for people, interacting with people like you really, really want the best for them and really like them can be the best ways to give. But the principle does remind me of the concept of tithing from Christianity, that when you get money, God gave you that money, so you should give some of that money back to God, and he will actually bless you more.
Which is also a thing that televangelists very much use.
Right.
Like, if you give me all your money,
right,
I'll give you more money.
But they're right. If a televangelist manipulates you into giving your money to them, God will reward your generosity and punish their greed. So they're not lying, they're only hurting themselves.
Yeah.
They're also hurting whoever you would have given that money to if you hadn't been manipulated into giving it to a liar and a fraud that you saw on TV. But God is still going to look at you and go, okay, there's life force flowing into you and there's life force flowing out.
Yeah.
You picked a stupid place to give it, but it's still flowing through you. You're still not hoarding your money like it's yours, like you invented it. You know, you're still letting it pass through you.
But are you doing that if you are doing it with the express intention of getting more of it? That you're only giving it up because you believe you're going to get more?
If you play by the rules because you want to win the game, you can still win the game. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be successful. There's something wrong with wanting to be successful and not follow the rules of the game. So, I mean, if you win basketball because you know exactly what the rules are and you exploit them to win that game, you're still winning basketball. But if you want to be the best at basketball and you want to cheat, you're just going to end up on penalty all the time. Mm-hmm. And so, in the same sense, if you want to be wealthy, but you look to God and you say, okay, I want to be wealthy. How do I play this game fairly? And he says, well, first of all, you need to share. You go, okay, I'll share because I want to be wealthy. Well, you still chose to follow the laws of the universe. And so you're still playing by the universe's rules. And being willing to play by the rules is what defines you being a decent person. And so, yes, I think God will still reward that. But I think that the Bhagavad Gita makes it very clear that the man of yoga, the man who is living in unity, who's living the way in Christian or Taoist terms, that man never thinks about the consequences of his actions, good or bad, right or wrong, and thus has transcended karma. So you're not going to get, when you fuck up, you're not going to get punished for it. When you do well, you're not going to be hurt for it, but you're always just going to experience peace. You don't worry about consequences. It's like you don't expect a reward when you do something good, and you don't get a punishment when you do something bad. The universe just leaves you alone and you just do your thing. If you're totally free of attachment to consequences of actions, good or bad, then the universe just doesn't fuck with you. It just leaves you alone. And so
that's also like, that also lines up really nicely with what John Chang said about karma. That like some people, that like he could see auras, his master could see auras, and now he can too. Some people have bad karma, some people have good karma. Some people's auras show yellow instead of white or black. And those are very uncommon people who are kind of risen above that and are not thinking about that anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what the Bhagavad Gita describes as the man of yoga or the sage.
Interesting.
And so the best thing that you can do is not worry about the consequences of any of your actions. And the second best thing that you can do is expect good things for your good actions, but do good actions and play by the rules. And even though you're being selfish, you're playing by the rules, and God will give you your due. And then the bad thing that you can do is try to get what you want without following the rules. Mm-hmm. But yeah, if you give money because you want to get rich, yeah, fair enough, man. As far as I think. But something else that he says in this chapter about giving people, about being generous psychically instead of just being generous financially, is that the reason prayer works is because we're made out of two things: energy and information. And so if you apply psychic energy to express a certain kind of information, it will manifest. So if I apply a lot of psychic energy to this one piece of information, make Raleigh feel deeply loved by being itself, make Raleigh feel deeply loved by life, make Raleigh feel deeply loved by God. If I put a simple single piece of information and I attach it to a large amount of energy, it's going to manifest, it's going to operate. Because everything, including us, is made out of energy information. That's the language of the universe. Mm-hmm. And that's what Chris Langan says in CTMU, which is really interesting, that the language of God is energy and information. They both use the exact same two terms.
Whoa.
I have no idea if either of them have any connection to the other, but that's pretty cool.
Yeah. It's possible that Chris Langan's read the Bhagavad Gita, but it's also possible it's parallel thinking.
Well, Chris Langan, he's really, really bullheaded about his damn theory, and he doesn't like it when people speak in Vedic or Buddhist terms because he feels that they're using an outdated syntax and that he has a better syntax, as in a better context within which to address these issues about how the universe works. And I think he's being really silly when he draws those lines. Oh, that's an old syntax, and I have the new syntax, and they're thinking about the whole issue wrong, and just only listen to me. It's just a little bit ridiculous. Mm-hmm. Like at the end of his interview with Kurt Jamungal on the Theories of Everything podcast, Kurt says, "What do you say to someone who's seeking?" He says, "Read the CTMU and don't listen to people who criticize me." Those were his two tips. And so it's like, oh, okay, thank you very much for giving us the disclaimer that you're a narcissist, so I know how to put your theory in its proper context and understand that, like, a lot of these ideas that you're expressing are not new. But you seem convinced that you're the only person who understands them. I think they just both understand the same idea is what I'm getting at. Yeah. And that really excites me.
I totally thought that Chris did not handle that question well at all. That it's like, well, look other places and like look at the CTMU and also look at other things and also look if they line up and it makes sense together. Like there was much better advice he could have given. But,
yeah. But at the same time, like, just to play devil's advocate, if he's right, he is right.
It's very possible that he's just right, and that is what it is, and he's cocky because he's right.
Right.
Maybe.
And if so, more power to him. Yeah. So, law 3 is and so just to review real quick, the law of pure potentiality, the law of giving, and now we have the law of karma, which he also describes as the law of cause and effect. So karma, as far as Sanskrit goes, it means action and it means consequence of action. So karma means that just that action exists and that every action has consequence. Mm-hmm. But this gets a little bit confusing. So he says, you reap what you sow, every action has a reaction, every action has a consequence. He says the process of living involves infinite choices, and each choice has infinite possibilities. And so if you're totally mindful in each moment of what choice you're about to make and how it's going to affect you later, then you can make the right choices more often. And then he says, the way to make choices is to ask the heart, like literally try to tune your attention into your heart area of your physical body and announce the decision that you're about to make and see if you feel from that area of your body a sensation of comfort or discomfort. Just 0 or 1, yes or no, comfort or discomfort.
Wow.
And I tried that while I was reading it and actually got really good advice because I'm about to start working as a handyman in this uptown area. So I decided to just start an LLC, call it the Uptown Handyman. I can get these 2 gigs here, Uptown Theater and Emerald, and then I can go to other businesses and be like, hey, I have a company. I'm the Uptown Handyman. I have 2 clients, Emerald and Uptown. If you
That's not
need
bad.
anything,
Yeah.
I can help out. And that's a fine plan. But also, I am going to start learning to run sound here at the theater, at least well enough to run sound for church on Sunday mornings. And it's also a possibility that I could learn sound well enough to run concerts here. And if I did that, I would consistently have hours doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So last night, I decided when I read this part of the book to stop and ask myself a question. So I said, this Uptown Handyman thing that I'm really excited about that I think is a good idea, comfort or discomfort? It said discomfort. You don't enjoy doing building maintenance. Like, what are you talking about? You don't enjoy physical labor. You do it because it makes money and it's honest work and it, it's a clear conscious, it's simple. You learn useful skills. That's all fine. But you don't want to make a company doing this. Like, this is not what you're passionate about. I'm like, damn, didn't expect that. That's
Interesting.
actually really frustrating.
Yeah.
And so then I asked a follow-up question, trying to tune my awareness to this area of my body where my physical heart is, and said, what should I be focusing on instead? And it's like running sound, because you just said a couple months ago, you want to manifest opportunities to use music to induce religious experiences. And if you want to be able to do that, then, so it's throwing my own goals in my face.
Wow.
That I was in meditation and decided, you know what I want to do? I want to be someone who induces positively transformational experiences for people through psychotechnologies and through music. So when I make music, I want it to be to give people transcendental experiences. And when I counsel people one-on-one or do hypnotherapy or teach meditation or anything, it's for the same purpose. And so I manifested that. And then it said, that's what you're manifesting. You're not manifesting being the best handyman in town. What you're manifesting is this. If you want to make music like that, you need to understand the mechanics of audio better so that you can have a more hands-on approach with the production side.
Yeah, totally.
Otherwise, it's not going to happen because you need to be able to produce sounds that you want. So
Right.
by learning how to apply the proper compression and the proper EQ to all the different instruments on stage and learn how to run audio for a band, you're going to learn so many skills that are useful for that. And the audio stuff is a higher wage than the maintenance. And so what are you doing? And I'm like, wow, thanks a lot. So, but can I do maintenance for now? It's like, of course. Like, there's work at Emerald, there's work at Uptown. Do that for now, but just transition to just working in music and helping people with their state of consciousness. Just try to focus on those 2 things and hone in more closely on what you really want to do. I'm like, wow, thanks. And I had this whole conversation with my chest. And if I hadn't done that, I would have leaned into the handyman thing more. So it's really smart advice that I was thinking about the consequences of it, which is that I would make enough money to support myself, but I wasn't thinking about the more long-term consequences. And when I tried asking my heart if it felt comfortable or uncomfortable with the choice, good advice emerged. So that's all really cool. But here's where it gets confusing with this whole idea about karma. He says there's 3 things you can do about old karma, because you have bad karma stacked up against you. You have karmic debt. You have old karma. What should you do about it?
And now is this referring to from before in this life, or is he speaking reincarnationally?
He didn't specify.
Okay.
So the 3 things that you can do about it, you can pay it by making amends and making things right. And there is a cosmic law which states that all actions must be repaid. And then the second thing you can do is when bad situations come up in your life that might be the result of past bad actions, you can try to alchemically transform them into positive things. So let's say you get in a car accident and you lose your legs, then you could go, okay, this might be the result of past bad actions. It might be bad karma, but instead of just taking it as a punishment, I'm going to choose to turn it into something positive, and I'm going to lean into my academic and spiritual studies because I can't move around anyway, so I got even more time for it. This could be a good thing.
Oh,
I'm going to
yeah,
lean
okay.
into that. He says that by doing that, you end up covering more bad karmic debt than if you take the things as punishments. And then the third thing he says is you can just transcend karma. And you can transcend karma by consistent meditation. But I think that that Christianity as a belief system has some really important insights to this issue of karma and what to do about karma. Because the basic Christian idea is that Jesus died for your sins, Jesus is your savior, and you are redeemed by Jesus. And those words are just useless to anyone who doesn't already believe in the tenets because they're so confusing and vague.
Mm-hmm.
But to reference, but let's apply them to this situation because they're very useful. So point one, that yes, there is a cosmic law that says that every debt must be repaid, but God is infinitely capable of repaying any and all debts that anyone has stacked up. And he announced that to us by being a perfect person and allowing horrible things to happen to us. So it's not that at the moment that Jesus died on the cross, we gained the ability for our karmic debts to be covered by God just out of sheer grace. It's that we always had a God who is so made out of grace that we can, instead of paying past karmic debts, just ask God to cover it and then just move on with our lives. That's what we can do. And so
You're saying
that is the case.
that's the case?
That is the case. So what the Christians say is when Jesus died on the cross, he died for everyone's sins. Since he was God incarnate, that one sacrifice covered all of the debts in the world. But that's not the truth. The truth is that God is and always has been infinitely wealthy and infinitely willing to pay everyone's debts off. All you have to do is contact God and receive a grace that he's already offering you, and you can erase all of your karma and start fresh, and you can go to heaven when you die, or you can do another lifetime when you die. You can do whatever you want. Boom, fresh, in a moment. But the Vedic answer is all debts must be repaid unless you transcend karma through consistent meditation. And so yes, you can meditate so much that you gain direct contact with God and realize the nature of God is that you can just have your debts paid. You can have them wiped, and that he offers that grace to you. Or you can, in a moment of total desperation, internalize the Christian gospel and learn directly and all at once that God is willing to cover all of your bad debts and just give you a fresh start. So a lot of people try to do that with Christian religious conversion, but it doesn't stick, and they end up in the karmic cycle anyway. But there are people who can just accept the Christian gospel and get an instant restart right away, in a moment, nothing required, nothing asked. And Jesus dying on the cross was just to announce that reality to us, not even to create that reality.
That was him just
So,
doing it.
These are just my opinions,
That was him
but
doing the thing and showing that you could do
it was
the
the
thing.
only way for him to prove to us firsthand that so first he had to prove that he was God in the flesh, right? So he did that through miracles and teaching and all the prophecies announcing him before he was born. Then the second thing was conduct himself perfectly. And then the third thing was let everybody treat him horribly, but tell them that he was doing it for them and that he was dying for the sake of their sins. So he was communicating with them in a very archaic language because they understood sacrifice. And they understood that sacrifice meant that if you wanted something, you had to give something up. So he's saying, now let me take that concept, that archaic concept you have, to its ultimate extreme. What if that which you are paying the sacrifice to in the first place sacrificed itself to pay every single debt in existence? That would be one sacrifice. There would never have to be another sacrifice again, correct? Now let me show you how that works. I'm God in the flesh. Let me prove it. Now I'm going to let you kill me, and that's my sacrifice to free all of you. And then he did let them kill him. So he was only doing it to demonstrate and prove to humanity that that principle is present in being. But if he was God in the flesh, and God is eternal, and God's nature is unchanging, then that reality was always present anyway. And so you can transcend karma through that message from Jesus. You can transcend karma just by meditating regularly and not caring anymore about whether your actions have positive or negative consequences. And just to draw one more connection between the Christian messaging around this issue and the Vedic messaging around this issue, in the Lord's Prayer, which is Jesus' instructions for how everyone should pray daily, it says, "Forgive me as I forgive others." Or another translation, this is either Passion or Messages. No, sorry, this is a way more esoteric translation from a weird book called Prayers of the Cosmos. But it's basically, untangle me from my
Debt? Karma?
debts. Yeah, something like debts. It's like untangle me from my past mistakes and untangle everyone else from all of our past mistakes, something like that. But forgive me of my debts as I forgive my debtors for their debts is another way to express the concept. Stop paying me in good or evil for my good or evil acts. It's like saying, I'll give everyone around me a fresh start when I have the authority to. And I ask that at the same time, you give me a fresh start as you have the authority to. So you have the authority to give me a total fresh start. And everyone that I have the authority to give a fresh start to, I'll give that to them too. So you can give me that divine grace and I'll allow it to flow through me. I'll free everyone that I can and you free me. That's an important part of the Lord's Prayer. And then the Bhagavad Gita is saying something similar. If you stop expecting anything for your good deeds that's good and stop expecting anything from your bad deeds that's bad, you're free of the whole system. So do you see how those are two different methods of freeing yourself from the karmic cycle?
Yeah.
Or the same method expressed differently or whatever?
Sure.
So I thought it was kind of confusing that Deepak said there's a cosmic law that you have to pay your debts. And then he says, oh, but you can just transcend them. It's like, which is it? But it's both. There's a cosmic law that they have to be paid, but there's something that'll pay it for you.
Right. So there is someone else who can cover it, who can cover that
so
bill.
it still needs to be paid.
Mm-hmm.
And so then that's where the Christian idea comes on. It was paid by that sacrifice. Or in Vedic terms, it's paid by the source of wealth because it has infinite wealth. It's not like, oh, sorry, I can't cover that. It's like it's going to have to cover everything in the end for this whole thing to unite again.
Yeah.
So, you got any questions or comments about that part?
No, yeah, I mean, I just suppose, like, my knee-jerk reaction to it is that, like, I don't necessarily like it. Maybe it's because it feels unjust in some way. But, I mean, it's feeling like maybe that's not a good reaction on my part. Just, like, I just imagined that karma is something that you got to deal with. No matter, but at some point you're going to have to face all of it. But the idea of if we can all mutually agree to forgive ourselves and each other, then it goes away. But that's not even quite it either.
It's more that if you want to live in a world where everyone is held accountable for everything bad that they do, you will. If you want to live in a world where nobody is held accountable for what they do, you will. So you won't be held accountable for anything you did wrong if you don't hold anyone else accountable. You won't be said, do not judge lest you be judged. You want to judge, you want justice, you get judged, you get justice. You want to give grace and just say fuck everything, fuck every wrong thing that was ever done to you, but also fuck every wrong thing that you did, you can be free. You can just choose either game. And neither one of them, I think, are unrighteous in the eyes of God. It's like you can play the justice game or you can play the grace game.
Yeah.
But if you do so much bad that you're like, oh, I want the grace game now, it's like, no, but you don't really have forgiveness in your heart for all the people that you wronged. You really just want grace.
Right. Yeah. And I suppose, yeah, that does make it a little bit better to me. I like that system better, understanding it that way. That, like, because, like, it just makes me think of people that do a bunch of bad things and then they're like, I'm born again. My sins are forgiven. Jesus' blood has washed me and now I'm cool.
Right.
But that is only, what you're saying is that that's only real if they really have forgiven everybody else in their heart for everything that's ever happened.
Right.
Yeah. And then
the fact that concept exists means that there are going to be people who just put on a social mask of that concept. They're just going to draw that concept on a mask and duct tape it to their face.
Yeah.
Go, yeah, I did a lot of bad, but I'm born again. Also, I want to brag about some of the bad things I did because they were badass. But I'm a new man.
Exactly.
It's like, yeah, nobody's buying that.
Yeah.
So you're still going to be held accountable.
Totally.
And people who communicate like that are likely to rant about people who have wronged them. You know, it's not, they haven't let it go. And so, yeah, you have to do it for real. But if you're ever in a pinch, I think that's an option.
Yeah.
If you're ever in a pinch, it's like, okay, well, just wipe it clean. Because, man, it feels good to want justice. Man, it feels good to have the right to evoke justice.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but it's an option. 2 games.
Yeah.
So the fourth law, the law of least effort. So we met with Jeff Anderson recently, a financial advisor, and he said, the first thing I do with people is I figure out where they're wasting money. And then the second thing I do is take that money that they were wasting on subscriptions that they don't watch anymore, bills they forgot they were paying for fucking, you know, they're paying Wi-Fi for an apartment they don't live in anymore, random shit on people's accounts they don't even notice. We get rid of those, and then we add up that number, and then we start investing that number. And so there's something really similar happening in the 4th chapter of this book, The Law of Least Effort. It's going, let's figure out where you're wasting energy. Let's stop wasting it there, but let's immediately transmute it to a better source. Because if you stop wasting it there, but you don't do something else with it, then it'll spring back to where it habitually spends itself. So let's make sure we reroute it right away.
Right.
So one of those psychological habits is defending yourself, constantly trying to justify yourself. Mm-hmm. He says 90% of people are trying to justify themselves all day, every day. And if you do not worry about what people think about you, what people say about you, what your reputation is like, whatever, if you're not defending yourself at all, then all of that energy can be moved into playing out the rules of this book, you know, doing positive things. Mm-hmm. And then you're going to have a better reputation. People are going to say better things about you. People are going to think better things about you anyway. If you don't think about it because you're just spending that energy over here, but that people are wasting a lot of energy just trying to protect their reputation.
Totally.
Or try to explain themselves or justify themselves.
Yeah.
Now, another place where people are wasting energy is resisting the present moment. And so Deepak kind of compares this to wrestling against the universe directly, because like we talked about when we discussed cosmic consolation in the Stoic anxiety episode, mm-hmm. whatever you're upset about is the result of the Big Bang itself, or, you know, whatever the source of being is. Or the, you know, the spark of creation is. Every single thing that has ever happened in the universe has culminated in the present moment that you're experiencing. So if you resist the present moment by wishing you were in a different present moment, like being distracted by fantasy or being resentful that you're not where you want to be, you're actually resisting the whole universe by resisting that present moment. And if you embrace the present moment exactly as it is, you're going with the flow of the whole universe. So it's like you're either wasting a massive amount of energy by resisting the whole universe, or you're gaining a massive amount of energy by going with the flow of the whole universe.
Yeah.
So you could look at it as like going against or with the wind, or against or with a stream.
Yeah.
And that mindfulness isn't just pleasant because you get to experience the things that are in front of you. It's also pleasant because you're not wasting energy resisting the experience that's in front of you.
Yeah, totally.
And like, so when it comes to answering calls, you know, it's like a lot of that energy getting wasted is wishing you weren't sitting there fucking answering calls.
Right.
That's actually where a lot of the energy goes, is resisting the moment that you're experiencing.
It's looking at the board. It says like how many calls are in queue right now. And like being frustrated by how little time you have in between or whatever. Mm-hmm. It's all the thoughts of anything besides what you're immediately saying, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so what he says is accept the present moment exactly as it is, but design the future. So give your attention to the present moment, but give your intention to the future. So what he would say to Sarah is step 1, choose to wake up and answer calls. Like find a way to make answering phone calls consensual, even though it doesn't feel like it is. Mm-hmm. And then 2, manifest a better job for yourself. So like those are the 2 things that you have to do, because also like when it comes to the law of attraction, this is just a side note. Actually, it is kind of referenced in this book. So he references. Yeah, we're ready to move on. Number 5, the law of attention and desire. This could also be expressed the law of attention and intention. And
Okay.
so attention is, it could also be represented as energy, and intention could also be represented as information, because attention or energy are how much is being applied, and intention or information is what exactly is being applied. And so
Okay.
attention is 5 pounds of pressure. Intention is to your arm. So there's attention and intention should put my hand into your arm. Attention is the quantity, and intention is the quality, where it's going to go. And so
Yeah. One is force, one is direction.
force and direction, perfect. So the law of force and direction is that you need to make sure that all of the force is going in the direction that you actually want to go. And so if you give a lot of attention to the fact that you dislike your job, you're actually driving yourself into the hellishness of your job.
Sure.
You're actually pointing you're steering your ship at the concept of of unpleasant job, unpleasant job, unpleasant job. You're manifesting unpleasantness and the same job. So he's saying instead of that, be mindfully present in the moment and intend to get a better job, because all of the attention that you put on, I don't like doing this right now. And obviously Sarah does not hate her job. So
Yeah, for the record, she's doing great and enjoying her job quite a bit. We were talking about it kind of from the other side.
Yes.
Good
yeah,
day. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, not shitting on Sarah's job, because she actually really likes it.
Yeah.
But let's say the days that she doesn't like, the more attention she gives to the days that she doesn't like, the more likely she is to have more days that she doesn't like, because the universe is structured that way. She's applying energy to a situation. Like the energy is the amount of frustration that she has, and the information is the frustration that she has, and it's just being pointed at something bad. So you have to choose to be where you are, and you have to steer yourself into the future. And that's so interesting, because Chris Langan said in the podcast, I watched another interview with him that was on a podcast called Simulation. It's only a 2-hour interview.
Okay.
And he said the guy was kind of a spiritual dummy that was just trying to turn all of Chris Langan's stuff into so basically you're saying, and just some spiritual thing.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the best interview, but he did say you can master reality with CTMU. And Chris is like, well, yeah, if we want to master reality, we do have to understand how reality is structured first. And the assumption that we can't understand how reality is structured is foolish, because we're made out of reality. We shouldn't consider ourselves fundamentally separate from the universe and incapable of grasping the whole thing. Mm-hmm. We should assume that we are connected with the universe and therefore capable of grasping the whole thing. And that's a very, very esoteric thing from Chris.
It is.
And really similar to what Deepak is saying. If you understand the laws of being, then you can succeed at being. Yeah. And you can be worth 100 mil and work 5 hours a day, because you play the game correctly. He says, at the level of the quantum field, there is nothing but energy and information. That was the most CTMU-ish thing that he said in the book. And I had listened to that interview the same day, so that was a really fun synchronicity.
Totally, yeah.
He points out that we're made of the same chemicals that everything around us is made out of. He names the 4 chemicals that are the most common building blocks of our experience, the carbon and whatever the 3 others are.
Oh, okay.
But that we are distinguishable from other beings because of the energy and information that we're made out of. That it's energy and information that makes it possible for the same chemicals to arrange themselves in one way over here and in another way over here.
Okay.
That it's energy and information that are guiding them to a certain structure. Just like you can make 2 different shapes with the same kinds of Legos, because the energy and information is different in each one. Same kinds of Legos, different structure.
Yeah.
So he says it's silly to think of yourself as being made out of chemicals, because those are just building blocks that energy and information uses to construct you. You're made out of energy and information more fundamentally. Mm-hmm. And energy and information are being, their creation and the modification of them is being facilitated by the self, capital S, or God, or being, or the creative intelligence, or the field of pure potentiality, or the unified field, or the Tao, or Atma. And so the closer you are to that level, the more consciously you can modify the energy and information that you're made out of. And the more easily you can change yourself and what you are and turn into what you want to be.
Cool.
This is just a random quote. He said that he said about manifesting your desires from a very still state that it is planting seeds in the womb of creation.
Okay.
It's like busting a nut
Yeah.
in the universe.
Yeah.
So I thought that was dope.
That's lit.
So to review real quick, the law of pure potentiality, the law of giving, the law of karma, the law of least effort, the law of attention and desire.
And are there like simple ways that the laws are actually said? Because like the third one is like follow your heart is like what the law actually is. Because like it's kind of like the title of the law, but not actually what the law is. Like did he give simple like this is what the law is? Am I making sense?
Kind of. Well, you misrepresented the third law.
Okay.
So I want to correct that real quick.
Sure.
That it's not the law of follow your heart. It's the law of karma, which is that every action has a reaction. And that one way to practically practice that in your life is to check in with your heart and see if it gives you a comfort or discomfort signal regarding the action. So he's just advising that you use your intuition in a specific manner to predict the karma of a certain action. So he's saying most people, they just make actions based on reactions, but they never use their intuition to actually tap into the consequences of their decision before they make it.
Okay.
And if they utilize their intuition, they can way better predict the results of the actions they take.
Mm-hmm.
So first, understand that your actions will always have consequences. And second, learn how to use your intuition strategically to predict what those consequences will be. But he kind of gives like a summary, but they're kind of wordy.
Okay.
They're like 3-paragraph commitments at the end of each chapter.
Gotcha.
And they're really cool, but they're not like quick summaries, you know.
Gotcha. Okay.
You want me to read you one?
Sure.
So, applying the law of pure potentiality. I will get in touch with the field of pure potentiality by taking time each day to be silent, to just be. I will also sit alone in silent meditation at least twice a day for approximately 30 minutes in the morning and 30 minutes in the evening. 2. I will take time each day to commune with nature and to silently witness the intelligence within every living thing. I will sit silently and watch a sunset, or listen to the sound of the ocean or a stream, or simply smell the scent of a flower. In the ecstasy of my own silence, and by communicating with nature, I will enjoy the life throb of ages, the field of pure potentiality, and unbounded creativity. 3. I will practice non-judgment. I will begin my day with the statement, today I shall judge nothing that occurs, and throughout the day I will remind myself not to judge. So he has little like 1-page chunks like that at the end of each chapter.
Cool. Okay.
That is a commitment that you can state to yourself to play out that law. But I find them a little bit confusing.
Yeah.
Like instead of being like I think maybe what you're looking for and what I'm kind of looking for too is like a 1-sentence mantra.
Right, like the titles of the chapters of 12 Rules for Life.
Right,
I'm
right.
looking for something like that.
Right. No, yeah, I know. And a law is different than a rule.
I suppose it is.
And Deepak said something about laws in this book that I did not grasp, but I saved it because, you know, when you find something that confuses you and you're like, if I hold on to this, I'm going to stumble into a way to understand this.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, this isn't useful to me yet, but I think it could be.
Yeah. He said laws are the way that the unmanifest become manifest. That's what a law fundamentally is, according to his Vedic worldview. And I could see how these 7 spiritual laws describe the way that the unmanifest becomes manifest. I see how they're describing the process of creation, especially when you read each one and then you look at them in totality and think about how they link with each other. Mm-hmm. I'm like, wow, that really does give me a better picture of how creation as such operates. But I don't understand what he meant by the idea that law is how the unmanifest becomes manifest. And then I think that rules, I mean, if laws are the branches, rules I think would be like the leaves and twigs. Like rules branch off of laws. Rules are like laws interpreted in a specific context, whereas laws
Okay.
are more laws are more macro. Um,
Right, because in a way, these laws are bigger than humanity. I guess they're bigger than that. They're more
Yes.
about the way that the world works
Yes.
across all life and not life.
So you're not misrepresenting the third law. What you're just saying is, I want to know the rule to extract from that law. And I wish that Deepak described how to extract specific rules from these laws. But it's just a book that is supposed to concisely describe what these 7 macro laws are. And then it's up to you to extract micro rules from those macro laws. And so follow your heart is actually an example of a micro rule that you can extract from the macro law. There is cause and effect in all things. You know what I mean? It's like,
Sure.
well, if there's cause and effect in all things, then we need to figure out what the consequences are to our actions. And a shortcut to doing that is to use our intuition. And a way to describe how to use our intuition is to follow our heart. And so you're like 4 steps away from the law, but that rule is what you actually apply. Like before you make a decision, think about if you're following your heart.
That works. Yeah.
We just had an audio issue and took a 20-minute detour and then hopped back in.
45, I think.
45 minutes?
Probably.
No, we went off. Oh, yep, 40.
Okay.
Jeez. Okay, 6, the law of detachment. So the point of the law of detachment is that if you want to operate from the level of you that is in the field of pure potentiality, you need to also operate in a way that is detached from the results of your actions and detached from obsession with attaining whatever you want to attain. Because so you have the capital S self, that is the field of pure potentiality that can accomplish whatever it wants to accomplish because it is that which creates in the first place. And then you have your ego, your individual self. So your individual self cannot create whatever it wants. You have to transcend that individual self, become the greater capital S self in order to manifest whatever you want. If you try to manifest from that ego level, it won't necessarily happen. That ego level is not invincible. The capital S self level is invincible. So your ego can say, I fall apart if I lose X, Y, and Z. And so, therefore, you're attached to the results of your actions and you're attached to the things that you identify yourself with. But if you're grounded in the self, then you can create whatever you want, but you can't be attached to whatever you want to create because you're invincible, you're eternal. And if X, Y, and Z fall apart, let's say if you're not really Raleigh anymore, right? If all of your relationships and all of your talents and all of your memories leave, you're not really Raleigh anymore. So at the ego level, at the Raleigh level, you're attached to your memories, you're attached to your relationships, and you're attached to your talents. But at the self level, you're not. And so if you're sitting there, let's say you have a session, right? Like Evan, you have a session, you sit down in your room and you decide, I'm going to consciously, internally set a goal for myself. By the end of next year, I want to make at least a full-time minimum wage income making videos that are fun to make. And if I can just do that, I'll be happy. That manifestation process is flawed because you've assigned attachment to what you're trying to accomplish. And since you're assigning attachment to what you want to accomplish, you're not operating from the level that actually has the authority to manifest what it wants. But if you meditate deeply and then you say, I am really just eternal consciousness at the end of the day. And what I'd really like to do with this life, what I would really enjoy is by the end of next year, I'd like to set a goal that I'm making at least a full-time minimum wage income, making videos that I enjoy making. And if I don't reach that goal, it doesn't make me any less of what I am, because what I am fundamentally is God, a creation of God, pure consciousness, whatever. Then the goal is more likely to happen because of the level that you're operating from. So checking whether you're attached to your goals is like a litmus test to help you determine whether you're operating from the proper level when you try to manifest what you want.
Okay. So too much attachment to the thing or to what you're trying to manifest actually being manifest makes it less likely to manifest.
Yes.
If you want it too much, you don't get it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because if you want it too much, well, it's not technically about how much you want it. It's technically about how much you stake on it happening. So if you say, I want this goal to happen. If it happens, I'll be happy. If it doesn't, I'll be unhappy. Well, then you're operating from a level that's dependent on it happening or not, which means you're not operating from the level of the capital S self, which means you don't have the authority to even manifest that in the first place.
Okay.
So, but you can really, 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 really want it and know 100% that you are unaffected by whether it happens or not on any fundamental level, because all you are is consciousness and it doesn't matter.
So the right attitude is just, if I could have this happen, it would make me happy, and just leave it there. And whatever, like if something else does happen, then it's not going to make you unhappy. That will also make you happy, but you just don't even really mention that part.
Well, no, the important thing is not whether or not you'll experience any displeasure if it doesn't happen. The important part is when you say that you want it to happen, who is speaking? Lowercase self or uppercase self?
Okay.
That's the part that matters. And whether or not you have attachment to the outcome happening or not is just a way to gauge what level of you is speaking when you state what you want. Because like, I mean, that makes sense, right?
Say that sentence again. Which
You want
part?
to pause it?
Which part?
So if you say, like in your normal waking state of consciousness right here, if you say, I would like by the end of next year to be making at least a full-time minimum wage income, at least have a full-time job, minimum wage, off of making videos that I enjoy making. That'd be great. Well, who is speaking? Like Evan, the individual finite self that is distant and separated from God? Or the very core, the very essence of Evan? Are you so settled in your mind that you're speaking from your very essence, from your very core? Or are you just in this gross waking state of consciousness? We can't perceive God in this room at this level of consciousness that we're at right now. We're not, like, we're not conditioned to be in this experience right now and simultaneously aware that we are capital T that. And so if we just say right here, this is what I want by next year, it's like, well, what level of you is speaking? The little puny finite level of you way out at the tip, or the infinite thing way down at the core? Because if that's speaking, then your creative potentiality will unfold in what you want. So that's what matters, is at what level of analysis of your being, at what part of you is saying that it wants that.
Yeah. Okay.
Like if you're really, really mad and you tell your girlfriend, maybe I don't fucking love you, then the next day you have to say, the part of me that said that has no authority. Like it was like 0.0001% of me said that. And she'll understand that. She'll go, we were heated. I said things I regret. But the parts of ourselves that were speaking were such small fractions of us that they don't represent us. They don't have the authority to speak on behalf of us. But if you look at her, if you sit her down and you calmly tell her that you don't love her, then you can't the next day say, that wasn't me. What level of you is speaking when you say what you say? That's what matters. And so if deep, deep, deep in meditation you state that you want something, it's not like, oh, I didn't mean that. It's like, no, I said that with the most settled, calm, grounded, stable part of me. Mm-hmm. And so that's why it will manifest. But the reason that attachment won't allow you to get what you want is because if you're attached to what you're trying to get, then you're speaking from a very weak part of you. That's why the attachment doesn't.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Awesome. Let me see if I have any other notes on that. Oh, he also describes this. Oh, like there's a quote: the self and the ego coexist. The ego eats the sweet and eats the sour fruits of the tree, while the self watches detached. That was some old quote from some funky old scripture from India. And then Deepak points out that if you ever say, if I had X or Y, then I would be happy, that's a very weak way to manifest, because whatever it is, like your inner state is affected fundamentally by itself. Like if this is actually came up in our Stoic Anxiety episode 2, if you stake your peace and your happiness on what happens in your external world, then the problem is that you're reliant on the external world, not that you don't have what you want.
Yeah.
So what Deepak calls that in this book is object referral and self-referral. When you're operating in object referral, your inner state is determined by your external environment. When you're operating at the self-referral level, your inner state is determined by what you choose to make your inner state. So if I do something offensive to you, you still have the choice to react or to not react.
Yeah.
And if you choose to get offended and you say, I'm offended because you said that, then you have unconsciously but voluntarily given that authority to that other person to affect you in that way.
Yeah.
And so he actually says, this was a couple principles ago, but one of the things he said under it was you have to take full responsibility, because the more responsibility you take for your life, the more control you take of your life.
Totally. Yeah.
And so so if I had this amount of money, then I'd be X or Y. Nope, you're going to get that amount of money. You're still not going to be X or Y. If you're insecure and anxious and frustrated about money, then it's because there is something about you in your character that's anxious, frustrated, and insecure, or whatever the adjectives that I said, not because of the money thing. So whatever you're projecting on your environment, it's from you. And if you take full responsibility for that, then you can modify your state. And if you can consciously modify your state, another way he describes that in the book is, if you can make less of your decisions unconscious and more of them conscious, then you have control of what you are. And you can continuously create what you want to create in your life, regardless of what happens to occur around you.
Yeah. Okay.
He also describes this principle, the law of detachment, as the wisdom of uncertainty, because he says that a lot of what we waste our energy on is wondering and being anxious about what's going to happen around us, and that if we can be comfortable in uncertainty, or another way to say that is totally mindful towards chaos, then even as things unfold around us, we'll be able to maintain our inner state. And then, because the field of pure potentiality is where creative ideas emerge, it's where solutions emerge. So if you come across a problem and the problem swallows up your awareness and your attention so that all you can think about is the problem, it's harder to solve it. But if you're totally mindful and present in chaos and uncertainty, then you've maintained the field of pure potentiality within yourself. And therefore, when problems make themselves known to you, solutions will spontaneously emerge from you.
Yeah.
Because the field of potentiality is present in you. And in Maharishi's model of consciousness, this is called cosmic consciousness. Even though you perceive separateness of objects around you, you never lose the awareness of pure consciousness within you. So transcendental consciousness is experiencing the field of pure potentiality, even for a moment in meditation. Cosmic consciousness is the field of pure potentiality being unshakable within you, but the objects outside of you still appearing separate. And unity consciousness is the field of pure potentiality being you always being aware of it within you and always being aware of it around you. So big similarities there between Deepak describing how useful it is to maintain the field of pure potentiality in its pure state in you despite what's going on around you, and what Maharishi describes as cosmic consciousness.
Cool.
He says attachment freezes creativity. He used another metaphor, like something like attachment forms a clot that blocks creativity. He used some kind of metaphor like that.
Okay.
He describes this was interesting. He describes the past as the known and the future as the unknown.
Okay.
And it actually reminded me of part of my manic rant at Sacred Heart when I was in the hospital room with you and Jill, and I was walking around and I was looking at the floor, and I was like pointing at the floor, and I was like, behind is science, and then ahead is religion, and there's these two circles. Do you remember that rant at all?
Not exactly. No, I don't remember the two circles, but this does feel familiar. This
Something
sort of like
it's like there's two overlapping
gotta bridge
circles.
physics and religion, or the sort of thing.
Yeah. So like what I was trying to express was that the linear timeline from the past to the future is kind of like a zipper, and the individual, I don't know what you call it, the tab that you actually use to operate the zipper, whatever that is the self in the present moment. And as we go, we zip up. So the process of mindfully living your life could be described as the process of zipping the unknown of the future into the known of the past. So every time you get through a moment, you've zipped up the unknown into the known.
Okay.
Now you've experienced it. It's no longer unknown. It's now known. It's no longer future. It's now past.
Okay.
And I was trying to explain, and I don't know why exactly. No, I mean, I do know. I found this revelation really powerful, but experienced it in such an unstable way that it was not useful information. You know, I had no ability to utilize that realization. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's taken years to unpack some of the things that I was like, oh, I just realized this, but I can't explain it.
Yeah.
It's like, mania is so fucking frustrating in that sense.
I bet.
But what I was trying to explain was the realization that that science is the domain of the known. Whatever we know and have recorded and have written down and have figured out, that's the domain of science. Religion is what allows us to operate in the unknown. And so that's how Peterson describes the interplay of science and religion, the known and the unknown in maps of meaning, saying that the world could be construed in two ways: a place of things or a forum for action. So the known is the place of things. This is a list of things that are true. But what religion gives us is not a list of things that are true, but an approach to use when going into the unknown. So here's how you should conduct yourself, even if there's chaos around you. That's what religion is for. Here's what we know. Here's the collection of what we know. That's what science is for. And so in that sense, religion equips us to move into the future, and science records the past.
Yeah,
and that's the realization that I was trying to express. And I was explaining that there's two circles, and the circles overlap over each other. I was trying to express the fact that what we as conscious entities are is that which, in the present moment, navigates between the known and the unknown. And that's how Peterson describes the logos in maps of meaning.
Yeah.
And so now I find those ideas really useful, and at the time they were just, unstable or whatever.
That's great. That's cool. Not the instability.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Being able to unpack it all later is definitely cool. Yeah, so Dharma. During our 45-minute break, we got into Dharma.
Okay.
So the seventh law, the final law. Let's review real quick because I like to kind of go over them as we go. Number 1, the law of pure potentiality. Number 2, the law of giving. Number 3, the law of karma or cause and effect. Number 4, the law of least effort. Number 5, the law of attention and desire. Number 6, the law of detachment. And number 7, the law of Dharma. So I mentioned at the beginning of the episode that there is a certain kind of breathing that is effortless. You're not trying to breathe. You're not trying not to breathe. Breathing is just happening to you, and it's effortless. So, and the proper way to approach life is, whenever possible, to approach life in the way that is effortless. Because if you do what is effortless, then you are doing what is most natural to you. And there are people who say, if you do what you love, you never work a day in your life. And what they mean is, when you perform your calling, work never feels like effort. And there's something really, really true about that, because I think that blades of grass, I don't think that their conscious experience of reality is, I'm trying to grow, I'm trying to grow, I'm trying to grow. I think their experience of reality is just, I am growing. I am growing. Look at me growing. I'm just growing along. A lot of people, myself included and Deepak included, he expressed this in this book, get the sense that much of nature is growing and expanding perfectly, effortlessly, and harmoniously. But we seem to be these curious creatures that are self-conscious, conscious of what we're doing instead of just doing what we're supposed to be doing. And the beautiful thing about that is that we get the opportunity to make the conscious choice to just do what's natural to us. Or, this actually makes it sound stupid, but make the conscious choice to do what we would do if we weren't conscious. Like, if we just did what God programmed us to do and we had no free will, what would we do? Well, now that we have free will, let's just choose to do that anyway, because it's the best thing that we could do.
Right.
And so the biblical narrative is that we just never should have elected to gain free will in the first place, because the best thing we can do with free will is do what we would do if we didn't have it.
Right.
Just do what we're naturally programmed to do. And you're programmed to create videos, and I'm programmed to counsel and entertain, and you're programmed to like protect and investigate. And we're all still trying to figure out how to play out those programs in the most harmonious way that benefits us and that we can make a living off of and everything. But whatever that is, we need to do that. And we need to leave behind the notion that if we're not working hard, if things don't feel difficult, we're doing something wrong.
Sure.
Like, it's supposed to be hard. It's supposed to go out there and supposed to struggle like I did. Like,
I don't really think so. No.
nah.
No.
You should do something that's like, I can't believe I make money doing this. This feels like cheating. It feels like I'm cheating life. Because what you're cheating is the false law that life is supposed to be difficult if you want to succeed at it.
Yeah, I'm not even sure that money is like even a part of what we should be doing at all. Like even that might be like kind of a thing that we're doing until we realize that we don't need to do that anymore, that was never worth it. Mm-hmm. But I suppose that's a topic for another day, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I tend to think that currency is the only way that we can become a fully integrated planetary species. Like, we would never be... Like, the reason that we all get along, even though we have all of these dramatically contradicting ideas, religiously and otherwise, with all these different cultures in the world, is like we're all financially dependent on each other. We can't just trade with our own tribe and war with the other one.
Yeah.
We invented currencies and allowed us to trade with people across the planet. And now we all have to get along, or we'll all fuck the money up and we'll all fuck the project up.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, we'd love to bomb you, but we buy toys from you. You know, we'd love to bomb you, but you buy toys from us. So I think currency is a good thing. I think currency is of God. I don't think like the way that the Federal Reserve just manipulates the dollar however they want is necessarily of God. Like it seems like they're getting off track there, kind of going upstream. But I think international currencies are a good thing overall.
Maybe it's like I guess I imagine it as a thing where like maybe it is like we left the garden because we wanted free will, metaphorically. We left the garden and now money and that whole system is all a part of a process that is going to lead us back to being like, oh, we never really needed that free will anyway.
Right.
That like that's a part of it that we need to do in order to get back to the realization that, oh no, it's all fine. I was trying way too hard.
Yeah.
And then right after we'll forget again and we'll start doing money again.
Right.
But I imagine it to be a part of that, like this necessary trial that we are putting ourselves through.
This big loop that now that we've started, we have to go all the way around the loop.
Right.
Kind of thing. And also, like, I'm saying that currency solves the problem of war, but if we didn't do the whole free will thing, we probably just wouldn't kill each other. We probably wouldn't need a currency. We wouldn't need interdependence to prevent war. We probably just wouldn't see the point.
Right.
So, yeah, that was a fun detour.
Yeah.
So he gives 3 steps to living out the law of Dharma. Number 1, you have to discover that you're divine. You have to discover that what you're fundamentally made of is the supreme divinity. You have to realize that you are a god or goddess in embryo. You are a little seed of something that you could never imagine. Like what we're all evolving into as individuals and as a whole species is so beyond what we could imagine. We're on track to becoming something divine. We are a spark of divinity. We are made out of God. We have to find that first. Second, we have to find our unique talent and the unique way that we express that talent. And so, like, unique talent, filming, especially comedy, like the videos that you have made just fucking around are so funny. And so, like, the unique talent is making funny videos, writing, directing, and acting in funny videos, but then unique expression of that talent. So like you have to do videos because Evan loves to do videos, but then you have to also be yourself making the videos. So they have to be videos that nobody else on the planet could make. And so that's the second step, your unique talent and your unique way of expressing that talent.
Okay.
And then the third step is you have to focus on being of service to others. And so like Jack Harlow, he's been kind of a mentor to me recently. I really like the head that he has on his shoulders. He said, you know, I had this moment one time before I went out on stage. I said to myself, it's not about you, Jack. Do it for them. Go out there and be an entertainer. And like that sort of unlock is like if you, Evan, are making videos, like let your intention as you make videos be to entertain people as much as you can. And do that with total abandon because it's not about you. It's for them. because we always get stuck in our heads when we create. Like, how is this
Right.
going to make me look? What will people think of me when they see this? Like, it's not about you, Jack. Go out there and be an entertainer.
Or thinking about like being, like making this so that you can feel good about yourself for having made something.
Yeah.
For having done something.
Right.
Yeah, that is
Right.
a better way to look at it.
And like, how different would our content be if instead of the point being like, hey, we're brothers, let's spitball with each other just for fun. But what if the point was, let's make this content so it's as valuable as possible for whoever watches it? It would probably be like way cleaner and more polished and shorter and marketed smarter. But even if we weren't doing it because we wanted views, we were doing it because we wanted the information to benefit others as much as possible. It would have more views, might even make us money by now. But we just do it to entertain each other, to spend time together, to hold each other accountable to read, which is just about us.
Yeah.
And so, like, he says, with every endeavor, you have to know that you're divine. You have to have your unique talent, and express it uniquely in your own way. And then you have to do it with the intention of benefiting others. And if you do those three things, then you'll be aligned with your Dharma, your vocation, your calling, your purpose, your path. And since you're interested in reincarnation too, I'll also say that Edgar Cayce and Carl Jung, both people that we respect, a psychologist and a mystic, I guess you'd say, they both said that we reincarnate because we didn't do what we were supposed to do with that life, so we have to start over. So it's not just that we reincarnate so we can have every possible set of experiences because we're the same consciousness transforming into all these different things. It's that we have to do each incarnation over and over again until we do that one right, until we live out our Dharma. And so we really have no choice but to do what we're called to do, because if we don't, we're just going to start the game over and be back at the beginning.
Interesting. And there's certainly room for both ways too. There's certainly room for
it is. Yeah, I'm saying it is both.
That you reincarnate repeatedly until you do Travis correctly, and then you move on to a different character.
Yes.
And maybe you do them all.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Okay.
Yeah. And then there's soul groups that are a group of people all interacting with each other until they play off every possible set of combinations of that group. And, we're going to be friends now. And then, we're going to be lovers now. And then, we're going to be enemies now. Let's play out all these combinations. And then that whole group eventually moves on. And then there's groups of groups of groups of groups of groups until there's just one consciousness that's just playing each game. Yeah, but you have to do each one perfectly. Or at least, I don't want to say perfectly because I don't know where the standards are set.
Yeah.
But Edgar Cayce and Carl Jung both felt that way, that if they didn't do what they were supposed to do with that lifetime, they would just have to start over. So they might as well just be exactly what they want to be, exactly what they're called to be. And that kind of eliminates, I guess, excuses for us, It's like, well, we have no choice. Let's just be great. Otherwise, we're going to have to do it over again. Let's just do it.
Yeah.
Random point, he said, the internal dialogue of the spirit is, how can I help? The internal dialogue of the ego is, what's in it for me? So, and once you've gone through all of these laws, you can start looking at how they play off of each other. Like, I compared law 4 and 7, the law of least effort and the law of Dharma. That which is your Dharma is what takes the least effort because it's what you're programmed to do.
Sure, yeah.
Or like, we take karma and attention and desire. Well, if you put all of your attention into the right desire, you will have the best karma possible. Or let's take the 6th law of detachment, and let's take the 2nd law of giving. It's easier to give if you're not attached to what you have. It's easier to give if you realize that your value isn't conditional on what you have. Or let's take number 1 and 5, pure potentiality and the law of attention and desire. Well, the fact that we are the field of pure potentiality means that we have the conscious ability to set our attention and set our desire, that we can actually choose our attention and desire. Mm-hmm. We can only choose our energy and information because we are that which transcends energy and information. That's what we fundamentally are. Mm-hmm. So you can take any two of these and plug them into each other, and they they work really nicely with each other. They
For
form
sure.
a whole picture, a complete picture.
Yeah.
So I think he thought out this book really carefully, and reading this book is probably the same length as listening to this podcast. So it was great.
That's awesome. I love it. Those are good rules. I especially like number 4. I love that sort of wu-wei idea about just doing things effortlessly. I've thought about that since I worked at Amazon, and I find it really interesting. Good book, though. Sounds
How
cool.
did it apply at Amazon?
Well, phone calls, like just thinking about like when you're in a situation where the phones are very backed up. There's 100 people that are waiting in line for somebody to pick up the phone, and you're on the phone with someone, and you look up at that, and it's like, oh god, and you're just thinking the whole time about like, and you're like looking at the clock like an hour and a half until break, and so you're just kind of focusing so much on like you're like tense and thinking about how much work you have to do rather than just you can only talk to one person at a time. So just be in the moment and like be talking to the person that you're talking to and don't worry about anything else. Like it is
Right.
you can totally take a phone call at Amazon without having to feel super stressed out. Even if you're not getting it. It's like, okay, well that didn't seem to work. Let me check a couple things here. And like
Yeah.
just be calm about it. And if I didn't give my energy to being annoyed about the situation that I was in and how it was bad, or how this person was being rude, or how there was too many calls in queue, or whatever it was, then I would go home and feel just like chill. But then some days I would go home and feel like just crap and just not want to do anything because I had been stressed out all day, even though I could have not been, but I just chose to be stressed out all day.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's difficult if 10% of your energy is expended on the call and 90% on resisting the fact that you're having to take the call and blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah. And it's, but if you only think about taking the call, then you're only using 10% and the other 90% is just chilling.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Word. It's a great example.
Yeah.
Well, I really, really look forward to applying these laws. Been a life-changing book. I really liked it.
Awesome.
Excited to read another one by him too.
Perfect.
Night School.
Night school.